2023 meeting of the City Council. We're delighted you all have joined us. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask that you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America,
Allegiance to the flag
to the republic for
States
which
of
it
America,
stands,
to
one
the
nation,
nations
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you call roll, please?
Yes. I can find my piece of paper here. Not like I don't know you already. Ms. Conley?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes. Here.
Ms. Leon? Oh. Ms. Sean Siscott?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
And Mayor Tarter?
Here.
And I think we have a motion for Mr. Snyder to participate remotely.
We don't have a motion yet, but we will have one soon. So
We have a motion prepared.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I move the City Council approve electronic participation by David Snyder in this meeting. Mr. Snyder, can you identify your location and the reason for your participation by electronic means?
Yes, Omaha, Nebraska, job-related travel. Thank you.
Okay. Pursuant to the City Council policy for remote participation in City Council meetings as adopted by Resolution 2023-06.
Second motion.
all right, Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Sean Siscott?
Yes.
And Mayor Tarter.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Leon has joined us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Let's move on now. Welcome also, Mr. Snyder. Let's move on to adoption of hopefully an amended meeting agenda. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move to add a closed session to item 15 pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711 for the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body.
I think we've covered the ground there. Is there anything else we can do with employee? All right, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I think we do need a roll call on that.
Oh, we
Is
do?
that-
Okay.
Am I correct?
On an agenda? Okay, let's go for that then.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Sean Siscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. The agenda is amended.
All right. Let's move on to a very special proclamation for a very special person here in Falls Church, Christopher Fay, who hopefully is joining us remotely. Mr. Fay, are you with us remotely this evening?
I think he was planning to come in person, so he may be running late.
Okay. Why don't we wait just a little bit and see if he makes it in person? And if so, we can give him his proclamation in person. If not, we can go ahead and do it and make sure it gets to him. So we're going to hold off on the proclamation. Any oaths of office to administer to any person tonight?
I haven't heard from anybody. Is there? I don't think so. Doesn't look like it. Thank you.
All right. So we'll take that as a no. Let's move on to receipt of public comment. You want to start with receipt of written comment, Madam Clerk?
Yes. The following wrote with comments on use of the budget surplus. The Human Services Advisory Council asked for $250,000 to be designated to update the city's Americans with Disabilities Transition Plan. Martha Reserve asked for more funding for the arts. John Measley asked for more funding for sidewalk repairs. Alexandra Parent asked for a crosswalk at Berry and Broad Streets, and Suzanne Updike asked that funds be used to create a better leaf management program. The following wrote with comments on the proposed Quinn's Homestretch development: Patrick Conley from Falls Church Forward and Mark Gross, the president of VBIS. The following wrote with comments on the proposed zoning text amendments: the residents of 409, 411, 413, 415, 417, 421, 423, 425, 427, and 429 Park Avenue ask for amendments to the T-zone section regarding non-conforming uses. Kathy Thompson 502 West Broad Street, Unit 509, also provided extensive comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let's move on now to the receipt of public comment. That's for folks who are in the audience or on the internet who'd like to speak. If you would, please let the clerk know, either through submission of a speaker slip or if you're remote, through some other electronic communication with her. So let's go ahead and call the first speaker if we could.
Yes, and anybody who signed up in advance online, I'll call you when we get there. Thank you. The first person we have is Jeff Pearson.
All right. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Just give me one moment here. Hi, Jeffrey Pearson, 513 West Broad Street, apartment 204, Falls Church, Virginia, 22046. Pronounced he, him series. I am immensely honored and grateful to be here tonight. I am here because I think that, we in Falls Church really enjoy, a lot of good things happening, and I'm extremely grateful of what we do, do for our citizens and city staff, council, boards and commissions. But I really do think that with these surplus funds, I think having a accessibility study plus, action on, the 2012 assessment was very good, and it was roughly 10 years ago, so it should probably, there needs to be some more update. And I think I just want to echo my commissioners on HSAC to commend them and just validate what they're saying in that we asked for 250 the allocated funds to go for the accessibility study. But I think at the same time we really do need to make sure that we can do everything in our power to make sure that we have a haven, that we can be a haven for, people with disabilities. And I really do think that Falls Church, is such a great place. I think we can do so much more on that. And I really do think that it's such a important topic. And, not every, as I've said here before, there's, not every disability is visible, and I do a lot of work in disability rights and advocacy, and I would love to see action actually be done on this topic, not just reports, which obviously, look, they're very important, they need to happen, but I want to voice and just say a call to action that we really do need to be doing more for everyone in Falls Church, and as well as people with disabilities. And I think that the budget amendment, I would urge adoption, but with saying that we can do so much more, we really do need to, not only get poles out sidewalks, but to really just get the ball rolling and get Falls Church to be the most accessible and place that it can possibly can be. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I tell you, we appreciate you coming out. And I think those of us who've expressed some concerns about the cost of this program want to see more action and kind of less talk and more action. And so I think we got a long way to go. We haven't done as much, frankly, as we can and should have done these past years. I'd like to see things accelerate. I also think that you offer a unique perspective, and I'd love to have you more involved maybe in this process of how we can do better than we have done, because I think we got a long way to go still. So thanks for coming out. Thanks for your advocacy as well. Let's move on to our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Yes, next we have Marley DiRienzo, followed by Samuel Butler.
Let's make sure your microphone's on first.
Sorry.
All right. So I've noticed an increase in hostile architecture around the city of Falls Church, most notably in bus stops, where before I would see like fully sized benches. Now the benches have like bars over them, and they're kind of so that like people have to sit separate from each other. And I think that like the increase in hostile architecture just really isn't helping anyone, and that we should really pay more attention to and support our homeless population, especially considering that the average rent in Falls Church is $2,020, and the minimum wage in Virginia right now is $12. If you multiply that by 40 hours a week and multiply that by 4 weeks for a month, you get around $1,090, which is, again, not enough to pay rent, but it's also not enough to pay for bills, food, medicine, or any other necessity. And as far as I know, we don't have any food banks. We don't have any homeless shelters. We are just not going out there and supporting the amount of people who are not able to support themselves in the high living costs that Falls Church has. And I think we really need to do better on that, especially with the high mounting policing that homeless people face in Falls Church City. I've talked to some homeless people around Falls Church, and they're just trying to survive. Them being out in public is not hurting anybody. They're just trying to survive, and they don't have the support that they need in order to be housed, and they should not be policed because they cannot be housed. It actually takes less money to house homeless people than it takes to police them, as multiple studies have shown. In addition, I would also like to express my support for the Palestinian people from Gaza, as the Palestinian people of Gaza and Hamas are two completely different things, and the people of Gaza should not have to pay in their blood for the actions of Hamas. And I encourage everybody in this room to call their representatives and demand a ceasefire, as I believe that the women and children, 2.3 million people that live in the Gaza Strip right now, should not have to be genocided by the state of Israel just because of their government. Palestine has been under a settler colony for 75 years. This violence has not just been going on the past 2 weeks, it's been going on for the past 75 years. And I wholeheartedly believe that both the Palestinian people and the people of Israel deserve the right to food, shelter, life, and freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Samuel Butler.
Sorry, Ms. Connolly, would you like to say something?
We don't usually respond to when people speak in this time, but I just want to let you know that Falls Church does have a really robust program of supporting our homeless residents. And there's a woman here, her name is Dana Jones. Dana, are you still out in the hallway? She's the director of our Human Services Office, and we would love to get you in touch with her so you can find out what it is that we do to help the homeless community, because we all share your concern and appreciate your compassion. So if on your slip, if you had your address and your contact information, we can connect you with the Human Services Department.
All right, next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Samuel Butler.
Hey, Samuel Butler, 132 Spring Court, born and raised. First, I just want to appreciate and back up the previous two speakers, both on disability advocacy, homeless support advocacy, and what's happening in Israel and Palestine right now. There is an attempt at a genocide happening of the Palestinian people. It's nothing new. So I just want to make sure that we're all aware, understanding the complexity of what's going on. Anyway. And on the note of disability advocacy, I would also add a form of disability that many people can't see, include autoimmune disorders, which are aggravated and deeply dangerous from COVID. So I see a staffer here who's wearing a mask, see a couple of other people who are wearing a mask here. We should also recognize that some people might not feel comfortable coming to a place like this if their representatives and other people aren't making it safe for them in a very visceral way, people who have these conditions that, again, we can't necessarily see. With that, homelessness is coming to mind. And I think the first time I got up and spoke to City Council about the climate crisis, and half the council, I think, is still here, was probably in 2018. And it was at the old interim building over at the rec center, talking about how serious this issue is. And every year I'd come back and I'd give the same kind of impassioned speech about what are we doing. And I appreciate and respect a lot of the actions that council has taken recently to address these things. But even the T-zone, it's 3% of property in the city. And if you guys follow this issue, if you're here to, serve and represent the interests of the people who elected you, the hockey stick on temperature, it's been going like this, and now we're here. This is what September looked like. September 2023 to September 2022, it was this kind of gap. We're here. Temperatures are like 7 degrees Fahrenheit higher than they were. Again, you hear 1.5 C, that's global average temperature change, which is really low because that includes water. We are burning up right now. And the thing that I kind of wanted to come here to talk about is there are political realities. And people need to make points, and we're worried about losing people with the way we talk. And we have to justify everything we're saying in terms of, well, it's good for the budget, this and that. And maybe if we don't say those things, we'll lose people, we'll lose the political power. But at what point do we start getting real about what's happening, the homeless problem that's happening when millions and hundreds of millions of people are being flooded, burned, and stormed out of their homes? Is Falls Church preparing for that in a major way? For the lands that are getting salted from the Mississippi to Greece because the salt water is coming up? There's going to be a point when money can't buy food because these things are happening. And so what I want to know is what Falls Church's elected representatives who swore oaths to protect and serve the people are doing on a daily basis to better understand these things and take the type of dramatic action that a municipal body with public authority, because we can provision public services, the municipality can do things at a different level of scale than private initiatives and whatever else. At what point we're going to start doing this more seriously? Because that's what this moment calls upon us. And if we're being serious, thinking about our grandchildren and their grandchildren, there's nothing else to do when we wake up in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
And everyone remember, when that beep goes off, that means your time's up, and in the interest for all, just ask that you please keep your comments to the 3 minutes. Yeah.
That's my point.
Well, sorry, we don't have unlimited time for everyone. Madam Clerk, the next speaker, please.
I think that's it, unless there's somebody else who would like to speak.
All right, let's move on to the next order of business, which is the report of the city manager. Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Council and Mayor. I've got 6 things to report on, and I'll do it at a brisk pace. First, the Oak Street Bridge is nearing completion. We'll have an inspection by VDOT actually this week, and it is possible that if we pass that, or if the contractor passes that inspection, that the bridge will be open by the end of this week. And so we are going to be communicating out tomorrow on the results of that test, but we'll be very glad to open that bridge. Just to remind everybody, the bridge has been closed since February 13th of this year. The previous bridge was built in the early 1950s. The new bridge has very new and ample sidewalks, and is an important part of the connection for people walking to the Oak Street School. So good news to report on that. The rollout for the 20 is plenty, the switch over to 20-mile-per-hour speed limits on our residential streets in the city. Over 100 signs will be replaced starting in the week of November 6th. That replacement should take several weeks to complete. The 20 is Plenty education campaign was launched last week, and yard signs are available for those who would like to participate in getting the message out for public safety and for slower speeds on our residential streets. You can come by the City Hall at the permit counter and pick up a yard sign and have that as part of our overall messaging on that. Also, more information is at fallschurchva.gov/20. We are starting this week with leaf pickup. The City Council has had a good discussion about having a campaign this year to encourage people to take advantage of this great natural resource that falls so abundantly in the city of Falls Church, and to compost their leaves right there where they lie in your yard. It's something that I personally can attest to that works really well. But that is something that, in terms of labor, can actually be easier for the homeowner if you just have a composter on your mower to chop those leaves up, and you can either then rake them into your planting areas or just let them lay right there in the grass. We will be doing leaf pickup as we traditionally have been doing as well, and we will have the zones. Zone 1 is north of Broad Street. Zone 2 is south of Broad Street. We will also this year be breaking those north and south zones into smaller components so people can have more precise information about when the leaf crews will be coming by. This is very hard work by our city staff, and every year I'm very grateful for all the labor that goes in to keeping our streets clear and picking up the leaves each year. The fourth thing to report, we are coming up on Halloween, so a couple things to note. We'll have a Halloween carnival presented by Dr. Tooth Fairy, and that will be on Saturday, October 28th, in Cherry Hill Park. If it rains, it will be moved inside into the community center. There are 2 time slots from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., and then again from 3:30 to 5:30. There'll be food on site and food vendors. Bad Pizza is one of those who signed up for to sell pizzas during the event, along with many other attractions. And one other thing, just for the public to be aware of, that community groups have organized a Halloween Kiddical Mass Ride from down Park Avenue. So kids and adults will be moving down Park Avenue in the form of a costume parade on bicycles, scooters, and walking and other devices. And so we're working with the community and public safety to make sure that that's a safe event, but wanted people to be aware of that. That will be at 4:30 p.m., also on Saturday, October 28th. Then a last thing to note, trick-or-treating is just an organic thing that happens. That is not sponsored by the city. Typically, parents and children do trick-or-treating on the night of Halloween, but that is not something that the city schedules. Last 2 things to note, National Drug Take-Back Day is this Saturday, so from 10 till 2 outside of City Hall. Near the public safety entrance, you can bring back unused medications for disposal in a safe way with the city police department. This is free, confidential, and helps prevent drug abuse, misuse, and accidental poisonings. The last thing to note, there is an online survey that closes November 3rd for people to weigh in on our solid waste services. So trash, recycling, and compost services, we're updating our solid waste management plan. We do that every 10 years, and that's being led by Lonnie Marchetti, our solid waste manager, and she is working with the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee. So we will love to have everyone's input on these important city services and one of the most important environmental programs that the city runs. I'll be happy to answer any questions about these items.
All right, Ms. Hiscott.
Didn't have a question, I just had a comment that the police department also will do gun takebacks at any time. And I know at one point in time we talked about linking drug takebacks as well as gun takebacks. But that is always an option to be doing at City Hall too. So for those who may be interested in doing that, you can bring that along with your drugs to the police department. Thanks.
All right, Ms. Connolly.
Mr. Shields, a question about the 20 is Plenty campaign. Are the streets going to switch to 20 mile per hour speed limit as the signs go up, or is there going to be one day when we flip the switch?
No, the enforcement goes by what the signs are on the street. And so We'll also, be, the public communication is really important to this. We really want the whole community to get the message. And our goal is not to write tickets. Our goal is slower speeds in our neighborhoods. But we will write tickets if there are violations once the streets are posted.
Okay. And will there be extra police enforcement in the first few days of this, or is it, again, just an organic, the signs go up, they say 20, we'll do community education?
So we want to be visible about this, kind of in
Yeah.
all respects, and so the campaign is generally a communications campaign. I will get back with you in terms of sort of greater visibility from police as we do this as well. I don't have the exact facts on that, but I'll get back with council on that.
Lots of people are talking about this one. I've had more conversations about this than anything in a long time. Thanks.
All right, Ms. Hardy.
I made this request when we discussed in work session, but a request for both the city manager and the city attorney to respond to the 2 public comments we had about the zoning text amendment that I think is in front of us tonight. Given that I think the response needs to be pretty technical, I want to make sure that it was in your capable hands versus us responding incorrectly.
Yes, indeed. We heard that direction at the last council meeting, and we will get something out.
Great, thank you.
A question or two for you. Is there going to be yard waste pickup during leaf pickup time, or does that stop until leaf pickup is done?
No, we'll still do special pickups, and so people can call into the solid waste line to order a special pickup. What we do ask is that people not put brush in the leaf piles. The machines that pick the leaves up can only handle the leaves, and so any solid material or woody material breaks the machines, and so that is an important part of the messaging. But if you do need a special pickup, just call the solid waste line and we can make it happen.
Not a special pickup, but like Wednesdays, they pick up yard debris. Are they going to keep doing that through this time?
Yeah, if it's bundled and set aside separate from the leaves, then it would be picked up. Yep.
In past years, haven't we stopped doing the other pickups during the leaf time? Just slightly confused. What's that?
I'll get back with
It's
you.
okay. It's
Yeah,
okay.
I'll get back with you.
You
as
don't
to
need
what's
to
going
do
on.
that.
Yeah, I don't want
No,
the public
I
to
just
be
was curious
confused
because
about it either.
I did cut down a part of a tree today. Also on the drug pickup, is that at the farmer's market, or is it 12 to 2, or what time and where is that drug pickup?
So it's on Saturday from 10 until 2, and so that is coincidental with the farmer's market. And but the place to take them is by the blue awning for the public safety entrance. So not at the front of City Hall, but to the side, closest to Community Center.
Okay, great. All right, unless there's anything else, let's move on to business or council comments. Anyone have any council comments they'd like to make? Okay, let's move on to business on the agenda. Madam Clerk, will you call the first item?
We have TO 23-13, ordinance to amend Ordinance 2062 regarding the budget of expenditures and revenues appropriating funds for fiscal year 2024 for the General Fund, School Operating Fund, Affordable Housing Fund, and the Capital Improvement Program funds.
Ms. Balwa?
Good evening, Mayor Tarter, members of the council. We have for you the first reading of the budget amendment, first budget amendment for this fiscal year. And this item was discussed at the last work session. We received input and we have incorporated a couple of changes based on that. So a quick recap, we are requesting an appropriation of $2.387 million out of a year-end balance of $4.15 million, leaving a remaining balance of $1.76 million in the general fund. And then we are requesting, in addition to what was in the last week's discussion, we are requesting a transfer of $500,000 to the Affordable Housing Fund to be used towards adding 5 city-committed affordable units. And for those whose incomes are at 30 to 50% of AMI, and providing additional subsidies in the affordable housing ownership program for those whose income is between 50 to 80% of the AMI, and to allow them to afford 3-bedroom homes. And staff will be working with the Housing Commission and Affordable Housing Fund Group, work group, to implement these options. And look at the details, how it'll flow. And the second change that was made to the work session discussion was the business assistance request is of $100,000 to transfer to Economic Development Authority to be used towards a gift card bonus program. And last year, this program was done about the same time. This amount has increased from 40 to 60,000. We're moving 60,000 from the parklets to come to this amount. And that is all that's changed since our last discussion. I'm happy to address questions unless you would like me to go over any other details.
Let's go see what questions we have or comments. Questions, comments, Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Bawa. So the $500,000 number is based on what in particular? What chose us to get to that number? Is that reflective of the need? If there were more funds, could we meet more need? Or is $500,000 in your estimate what budgetarily is prudent? I'm just curious where that number comes from.
So a little bit of all those things you listed. So the CCAUs would, the estimate is $120,000 per year. The idea is to have this fund and rolling for a few years since it's going to be an ongoing program. And we are not committing all of the fund balance, all of the year-end surplus, so we would come back in January once we have even carved out the more exactness of what the program is going to be after talking to the commission and the work group. At that point, we'd see what other projects and look at the different funding sources. We have some ARPA money that may come back for reprogramming, and we may have some other discretionary funds that open up, so we could add to this at that time.
So the $500,000 number could grow to $750 or pick some other number, but that would not happen until, as you said, the new council seated and next year's mid-year supplemental would be worked on. So this would be a floor, but not a ceiling on resources allocated to this step up of effort for affordable housing units.
That's correct.
Okay. There'd been some talk, as you know, about other things that we might do to respond to needs at the younger end of the spectrum for first-time home buyers, help with down payments, or property tax relief at a more aggressive level for older residents. What in your judgment, where did we land on deciding not to do something in those two areas?
So the idea for this affordable home ownership program was to also target younger and income-based, both age and income-based. And on the tax relief program, there is that age limit of 65. I know you were asking for even further up than that, and we will look at the tax relief program holistically as we prepare for the next year's budget. I'm hopeful that within the next month or the following month, the Budget and Finance Committee is going to have a full overview of it. We enhanced that program in fiscal year 23 budget, so we've gone through it 2 budget cycles, and now we're coming up, so the city treasurer is going to present and see what any areas in there that we could make it more robust.
So enhancing it, making it more robust in terms of lowering the age qualification limit. In other words, you could be 60, or changing the income. In other words, you could have more than $20,000 or $30,000 in income and be eligible for participation in those programs. Correct,
that we could offer assistance to a larger number of people than we already are.
Okay. And the only reason not to do that tonight would be that you need, with staff and the treasurer and others, housing folks, time to calibrate and get it right. And in your judgment, that would take until early next year.
Yes, sir.
But could conceivably happen before you all roll into the budget cycle for the what would it be, 24, 25, I guess. So there could be further action on tax relief in the midwinter, basically.
So we're getting ready to mail the first bills, and I think the window that we have for amending the tax relief program to affect as of now, the fiscal year 24 budget doesn't allow us enough time. So I think what we want to do is start an early look so that we can make it affect, assist more larger population for the fiscal year 25 budget.
So if it's not a midwinter expansion of resources, what you're saying, what I hear you saying is that you would have the ducks lined up to implement more relief as part of the 24-25 budget that the manager would bring to the council in March, basically.
That's correct.
Okay, well, I appreciate your work on this. As you know, yes, I have spoken, and others too, about surplus stress. And I think this begins to address some of that while also understanding that, we have other unmet needs which need to be met or considered. We have to balance the priorities. And that takes some time. So I encourage the folks who will be on council next year to keep at this and try to keep in mind that while everything that we put into the budget benefits the entire populace one way or another, understand that there are certain communities, certain groups of folks in town who we deem to be of special need, and we have a special focus on those. And so while we meet the needs of all the other programs, we give special attention to folks whose property values are almost certainly going to continue to increase, and therefore if some action is not taken either on the tax rate and or on some of these programs, are going to find it increasingly difficult to either move into the city or to stay in the city when they get to an age where they're at a fixed income. All right, thank you.
Mr. Snyder.
Thank you. Just a couple comments. First of all, I think, and we talked about this a lot during the work session, bringing together the surplus and the next budget year closer together and avoiding, to the extent we can, surpluses like this so that the taxpayers can maintain the money rather than have us have it and then deal with it after that. A couple additional points. I have some support for additional ADA funding, and I think the additional arts grant that was requested for Creative Cauldron, in essence, would be used as seed money for a capital campaign that would generate many, many times that. So I have some sympathy for both of those. Let me ask Kiran Bawa, is there going to be another sort of set of examining this? In other words, when we look at ARPA money, potentially what's been spent, what hasn't been spent, additional requests, when and how can they be addressed?
Yes, Mr. Snyder, we plan to look at the ARPA monies that have been committed and that have been spent, and if we could reprogram any balances. And we also have some state grant that we are looking at into further details on that. Additionally, we have capital reserves. So at the next budget amendment, we plan to bring all the funding sources side by side and against all the needs that we could potentially use it towards. And then your feedback today would be considered towards that budget amendment.
Okay. When do you expect that to occur? Do you know?
I'm thinking a winter budget amendment, January, February.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much. And regrettably, I may have to leave this session for a few minutes and then come back later. But thanks very much. And I appreciate the concerns expressed by all of our citizens for local as well as international issues. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hardy.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to the item, the $500,000 towards Affordable Housing Fund. that adds another 5 units at 30% AMI. Refresh my memory, we have 5 already from the last budget, is that correct?
That's correct. We have 5 for 30 to 40%, and the idea for this one is to target 30 to 50% because the ADU program targets 60 to 110%, so the 50s kind of get left out. So with this, we're trying to capture 30 to 50%.
Got it. And I think by my last count, we have about 200 affordable housing units already, and so this adds actually 5% stock, so that's actually significant. How long does this last us? So let me rephrase. Do we have impacts to the operating budget, say, in another year or two, so that keep funding this, or does this 500,000 allocation last us some time?
So if it was just towards the CCAUs, it would last us about 4 years. But since we are also going to have a home ownership program, and once we have all the details on it, how much the fiscal impact is, I'm guessing this could last us over 2 years at least. And then in the next budget amendment, we try to bring you the details of the program that's going to be after discussion with the commission and the work group, and then what the impact is and how we make it whole for a longer period of time.
Got it. So moving on to the affordable home ownership, is this bolstering the Amazon Reach program we have, or is this a down payment assistance program? What component of ownership are we supporting?
I will note that Ms. Jones is on the call and invite her to respond.
Yes, this is Dana. Hi, everybody. This is Dana Jones. So in answer to the question, we felt like down payment and closing cost assistance is not the biggest need that we have right now. And that's because with our Amazon grants, we already have Virginia Housing as a partner, and they have a down payment closing cost program, which is really pretty excellent and is available to our home purchasers. And what we really need is a way for persons at lower incomes to be able to purchase larger units. So, for example, the last 3-bedroom that we purchased, and we're looking at purchasing another 3-bedroom townhome, people that are 60% AMI and below cannot afford that because the purchase price is too high. So what we're trying to do is put some subsidy in there so that would bring the home price down and more affordable to them. Because currently, the people that we have on our waiting list at 60% AMI and those, larger households would not be able to get that 3-bedroom townhome because they literally can't afford it. So we calculated if we put about $30,000 of subsidy in there to bring the price down, that they would be able to afford it. And we felt like that was a larger need. We want to be able to spread that around and have everybody have the opportunity to have those larger units.
Program and using it to buy down the price further.
Exactly.
Got it. And would this be part of that revolving fund, or how do we keep this money? Do we keep this money separate from the Amazon money, or does it, the mechanics of this are important because I think we spend a lot of time thinking through, would this be part of the revolving fund of the 3+? I think Caroline wants to jump in.
I would highlight.
Those are all the things that we're going to be figuring out because, we just, this program, we kind of started putting the details together last week. So we need a little time to meet with the Housing Commission and our nonprofit partner and figure all those details out. But I'll be able to give you an update once we have a chance to really plan all of that out.
Mr. Shields, I highly request that we don't commingle grant money with money that is coming from our surplus, and that the oversight of how we deploy this money resides with the city and not NHP. So you have a contract that's fixed with NHP for X amount of money. We're allocating another layer on top of that, and I just ask that you provide the right oversight for stewardship of that money, since it's funded separately from organic tax-based surplus. That'd be my one request, and make sure that we have a housing fund that has different layers, that we understand who's accountable for what layer of money is in that housing fund.
Yep, I know there was a local match we had to put in towards that program, but I think that, to Caroline's point, it's important for us to get the mechanics right. So I think overall, I would support the policy of helping more people in this income bracket buy homes, as we have a program established for that, but I think the mechanics are important to work out. So moving on, I'll plus one kind of Phil's point around senior tax relief when we can get to it. I think at the minimum, we should be keeping up with inflation, so reevaluating the brackets. If we can't do it now, we can look at it at the next budget amendment. Moving on to leaf vacuum, why I was glad to hear that you talked about the Leave the Leaves kind of communication campaign to kind of increase that awareness in our community. Could we get a fuller, I guess, report on, I think the request we heard from a resident is that it'd be great if we just put money towards this public education campaign instead of just the leaf vacuum itself. It sounds like there's a campaign underway. I'm not hearing that you need money to do that, so maybe we just need a more thorough report of what's the plan, how do we bolster, I guess, adherence to leaving the leaves.
So, yeah, we don't have an appropriation request for the campaign. That would be handled internally with our OCOM staff. But I think it would be similar to the campaign that we're doing for the 20 is Plenty, where we would have messages and we'd be seeking allies like the Urban Forestry Committee, ESC, other groups that are interested in this, who might want to help us amplify the voices on this. And the Solid Waste Management Task Force, I think, is another group. So just looking for allies to help with the campaign.
But you don't think we need money to do that campaign, something that we'll do within staff, and you feel good about that?
I think so, yes.
Great. That is a good answer. Last point. I think I agree with Mr. Snyder in that the concern about running surpluses every year. I think rather than just the timing in between when we have the surplus in the next fiscal year, I think a different way of saying it is I would like us to be more accurate in our revenue forecast. And I think in general, we've done, we try to do our best, and we've had some anomalies the past several years that explains why we've had surpluses in the year, but surpluses frankly just don't do us any good because the one-time money, while these are really important things that we spend in the long run, I think we want to be more mindful of taxpayers. And so I would love to see a more aggressive revenue forecast when it comes to FY25, because ultimately that helps us in the operating budget to either reduce the tax rate and take care of operating staff needs. So I'm putting that out now as, while we're a month and a half out from revenue forecast in December. That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Leon.
Yes, thank you so much for this in-depth report. I think I have 3 questions. Let me see if I get that number right. I know we had questions around the ADA plan update. Totally support the ADA plan update. Mr. Shields, is that $250 the best, pricing from a procurement and negotiation perspective? That is the best we can go in terms of pricing for that plan update.
So we haven't put the RFP out yet. We need a budget in order to put the RFP out. So that number is based on other jurisdictions that we have polled. That's the basis of that price.
So it's really an estimate for the RFP that's going to go out. It could come under, it could come over. Okay. I thought it was just inked already. Got it. This contract project management support, just to make the public clear, that's intended to help create surge staff aug resources for our, sidewalk infrastructure, projects, which are getting a little bit delayed because we're having problems finding staff to fill those vacancies, correct?
That is correct. We do have some key staff vacancies. So these are contracts that are actually already in place, and we would have additional funding for those to bring in surge staffing, just as you described it, for project management and for engineering services. So we can deliver projects without delay because of staff shortages.
Okay, just wanted to point that out because I know we got some comments about requests for making sure that when we have surpluses, we actually deploy the resources for the sidewalks and some of those projects that we know we've been working on but trying to chip at through the years. I really appreciate, I think it was 2 meetings ago, I really pushed around the 2.7 HVAC and looking to see if we could leverage other resources other than the local money. Can it be funded through a reprogram of SIP or through ARPA? Really appreciate staff taking that on and taking a look at exploring other options so we can actually redeploy some of this surplus back to programmatic needs that serve the community. So I know that nothing's guaranteed. We're going to come back at this in January, but I really appreciate that you're exploring that opportunity. And it's not to say that the HVAC is not important, but it was a huge amount to to deploy the surplus against, and it was a balance between, serving the programmatic needs and bringing it back to the community. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hiscott?
Just had one comment on the leaf vacuum, on the ESC crowd. There's been some more information digging, and there are some components that have electric options, and I just want to make sure that we look into those before making the final purchases of that. It doesn't necessarily impact the budget for tonight's purposes, but there'd been some more digging and some more consultants who said there's some other options that would not be putting more diesel fuel, heavy equipment into our fleet for a long period of time. So I just ask that those who know whether that would work for our city or not, look at that email. I'm happy to forward it on. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, please do share any information you had. We'd be happy to take a look at it. Thank you.
All right. I've got a couple comments, mostly around the ADA report. I guess I would just say, we've had this conversation previously, that I think this report would be most useful if it doesn't focus, frankly, on the obvious, things like, well, we've got to put curb cuts or ramps at our streets. We know that already. I think there's a lot more we can do as a community, and I would hope this report would focus on things, A, that go above and beyond ADA, but to universal design, that the ADA is a floor, but it's not a ceiling of things we can do. And so I think we can do much more than we have in the past, and that may involve city government, this building, which to me should be accessible in every way to the public. This is a seat of government. But also private new developments that we do. There's a lot of things I think that we're kind of haven't grabbed onto yet that we ought to be doing as a community. And so I would hope that this report would go beyond what we've done in the past, significantly so, and actually be kind of a call to action. And to that regard, I think it would be good, particularly going forward, is to allocate some money every year for those, not just to have a plan there sitting there, but to actually have, like we've done with other things, some funding to see that we can make progress every year on ADA accessibility issues. And so I don't know what that number would be, but maybe, it's $100,000 to start with every year that we're going to go towards things that aren't a road that's about to be repaved, but actually a curb cut someplace where someone can't get up, easily get up somewhere, or some issue here in City Hall, I don't know. But I think that would be a good idea, and maybe setting up a committee of folks like Jeff who really have firsthand experience about how it is to get around in this community would be helpful in finding ways to really get at the root of some of the issues that we have here. So anyway, I think that we can do better on accessibility, universal design, and I hope this spending, this funding can be added to actually make some real accomplishments on that end.
Well, thank you for those comments. And one thing we could also do is have some meetings on the street as we're doing this plan. And I think what I have experienced is that city staff are very passionate about this and very knowledgeable about this as well. The plan will help kind of organize prioritize the work, but staff are very motivated to make these improvements as well. And so we'll all work on this together.
Great. So do we have a motion?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, could I just follow on two separate things? Following on what you said, no discussion of this nature is complete without some mention of the impasse at Betos. Just want to put that on the record again. And if we could just take all the money that we've got for studies and reports and apply it to clearing the right-of-way and getting the streetscape installed at standard in front of Betos, that would be an attainment of significance. And secondly, just reading the minutes from the 2020 meeting that we had where the mayor brought up the decal fee for the decal that we no longer issue. I just want to make sure that on my way out, we do have wheels turning now, similar to what's been discussed about some of these other issues, housing, so forth, to examine, our sticker program. I understand there are reasons to have it. There's something uniquely, precious about having your Little Falls Church sticker on your car, and maybe we want to retain that for parking reasons or whatever. I mean, I'm sure there are reasons. But at minimum, calling it something besides a decal fee if we're not actually going to issue a new decal every year would make sense. And as the mayor pointed out in the minutes that I read, making the entire fee that we charge for a car, the car tax, so that it's in some way deductible off your income taxes seems fair. At any rate, we always kind of get to that late in the budget game. If we could get to it a little earlier this time, and obviously consult thoroughly with the Commissioner of the Revenue, whose office administers that program, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks for reminding me, Phil. I do want to rant once more. To me, charging a decal fee when we don't give a decal every year is just, the government ought to be honest, forthright, and that ain't honest or forthright to charge whatever it is, $30, $35 for a decal we no longer provide, right? We don't give those out. We don't, what's it, 33? All right, whatever it is, that just seems like, that's something a shoddy business does, but not your local government. So I think we ought not to be charging a fee for something we don't provide and haven't provided for several years. So that's just another rant I'll leave you with, and I'm sure you're excited to hear that. But anyway, unless there's any other rants anyone would like to give, why don't we have a motion, and then I'm going to call for public comment. Do we have a motion regarding this matter?
Motion to grant first reading to TO 23-13, schedule second reading and public reading for November 13th, 2023, and advertise the same according to law.
Second.
Ms. Hiscott on the second. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Charter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
Yes, we have TO 23-14, ordinance to amend Chapter 48 zoning of the City Code of the City of Falls Church as follows. Article 1, in general, Section 48-2, definitions, Article 2, administration, Division 3, amendments, Section 48-86, procedure, and Division 4, official designs. Section 48-112, procedure, Article 3, Board of Zoning Appeals. Section 48-172, powers, Article 4, districts, Division 13, OD, official design district. Section 48-585, intent, and Section 48-586, principal uses permitted by right. Article 5, supplementary regulations, Division 6, height, lot, and yard regulations, Section 48-1101, general requirements, and Section 48-1102, additional requirements, exceptions, and modifications, and Division 8, landscaping. Section 48-1184, design criteria, in order to change advertising requirements and variance criteria in conformance with state code, remove reference to T1 principal uses within the official design district, change front yard setback definition syntax for clarity, remove outdated references to street side yard and interior side yard, and address codification errors.
I'm sorry, I was back at the snack bar for a second. Do you mind
Again?
repeating that? Yeah, do you mind?
Sure.
Just making sure everyone got that. All right, we got it. Mr. Trainer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor
Yeah.
and members of council. City Council tonight is requested to grant first reading to proposed zoning ordinance cleanup items and refer them to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation. These cleanup items are minor amendments to the zoning ordinance and are intended to clarify meaning where ambiguity has been identified over the course of administering the ordinance, the zoning ordinance, reflect recent changes to Virginia State Code, and remove general errors. Updates since Council's October 16th work session are highlighted in gray in this report, and staff does recommend adoption of the proposed motion. We mentioned this at the last work session, but these cleanup items are the first of a hopefully more regular practice of reviewing the zoning ordinance, as is best practice to do. The cleanup items included in this report have been identified by planning and zoning staff in need of adjustment. Further, more complex items have been included in the lone attachment to this report that'll come to council at a future work session. And as far as the items under consideration tonight, I'll just remind you of what those are quickly, beginning on line 20. The first is updating the city code to reflect state code section 15.2-2204 around advertising requirements for SUP and zoning applications. The second is updating the city code similarly to match state codes definition on variances and language around the hardship test and analyzing the variance application. The third item revolves around the official design zoning district historic area, where under its allowable uses, it telescopes to permitted uses allowed under T1, the T1 transitional district. And in order to ensure that principal uses allowed in the OD historic area do not change when T1 updates take effect on January 1st. The recommendation is that this reference to T1 be replaced with a list of those uses permitted today so that those wouldn't change when the T1 effects do. One update to this item noted here is that staff recommends removing standalone parking lots as allowable uses in the OD historic area. And that change has been made in the draft code in front of you tonight as well. The fourth item relates to footnote 11 in the yard and lot table. In the zoning ordinance, this was kind of scrambled during a prior zoning update to make its interpretation a little muddled in terms of how the setback is measured for commercial properties with frontage on Broad Street or Washington Street. And the proposed amendment is simply taking that last sentence and moving it to the front, again, for clarity's sake. The fifth item is removing two outdated terms, which are street side yards and interior side yards. These previously referenced corner lots back when the city recognized one front yard and one then referred to as a street side yard or interior side yard. But now that those two terms have been removed from the zoning ordinance definition section, the city now recognizes corner lots as having two front yards and two just normal side yards. And so the proposed, the proposed amendment is simply removing reference to these two outdated terms. And the last item is updating codification errors in section 48-1184, which references the wrong kind of terminology. This is just replacing reference to section with division and subsection with section. One other thing I want to draw your attention to is on line 38. Staff's included the intent language of the official design district, which is a product of this district being a little bit obscured and not talked about as much. So the intent section is there for everyone's reference. And I'll just close by going to the timing section on line 92. Following tonight's first reading, the Planning Commission will have its work session on November 1st. A public hearing will then take place November 15th. And this item will come back for final consideration on December 11th. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, for any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Well, let's see if there are any questions. Any questions, Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jack, on the official design district, are there any current structures, buildings, uses that have standalone parking now that are in OD, and are those grandfathered in?
There are no parking lots that are principal uses. So all the parking lots there are accessory uses and won't be affected. So what the recommendation is removing standalone parking lots be as primary uses. So think of any commercial lot operator that could come in and you just operate a parking lot as the primary use. All the parking lots in the OD historic area today are tied to a primary use. And so those won't be affected.
Okay, so just for instance, like at Cherry Hill Park, the Cherry Hill Farmhouse, let's say that, it was decided that the handicapped access there is a little on the lean side, to be honest, as somebody who's been looking for handicapped spaces lately. If that wanted to be expanded to include, a couple more parking spaces, that would be allowed because it's an accessory use to structure that I presume is in the OD.
Right. Well, I also want to remind you that this pertains to the historic area of the OD only, which doesn't include the farmhouse. It includes the Falls Church Episcopal Church, and it's just that area south of Broad Street, north of Fairfax. It's that
Okay,
kind
and
of
there's never
triangle.
been any effort to try to expand the OD to include, it seems a little unusual that Cherry Hill Farmhouse is not in the OD, is not designated as an OD structure, but there's never been any effort or call to do that. In other words, this is not, discouraging or encouraging that from happening in some future action, but right now, the way things are, it wouldn't have any effect on it at all.
Correct. And just for one clarification, the farmhouse is in the OD district, but it's in the municipal sub area, which I know technically has its own.
As far down the rabbit hole as I can go.
Right.
Okay, thanks. You just, in passing, you'd mentioned that, these suggestions are being brought because of experience with planning and zoning. Is there anything that in the course of those discussions that's come up that it's in the nature of, geez, every time we get a special exception, we've got to deal with X. X is always a sticking point. Maybe it's somewhere embedded in all this side and front yard measuring stuff. And I would encourage us to, look at our special exception projects and see, if there is some consistent change that could be made that would consistently, match up those developments with market realities and citizen preferences. Is there anything in here that's of that nature, or is that really handled separately?
There are in the future items list. The zoning administrator actually identified 2, maybe 3 ones that came out of several, special exception requests, ones that they get frequently. But in terms of the ones being considered in this initiative, no.
Okay, so that's for another time.
Correct, yeah, probably next year.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Ms. Hardy?
We received a late public comment from Mr. Gresco about 7.5 side yard setback for a very particular part of it. Mr. Trainer, what is your recommendation for us on that?
Yeah, I believe that's also in reference to a future item, and so that'll be incorporated when that comes for actual consideration.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Any member of the public wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Do we have a motion? Do we have to read all that for the motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to grant first reading to TO 23-14, right? Refer to the Planning Commission, schedule second reading and public hearing for December 11th, 2023, and advertise the same according to law.
Phil, we can't let you off that easy. I think you got to read the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm not reading that part Celeste read again.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Hiscott on the second. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
I think he's
I think he
left the
he did
meeting
drop off.
briefly.
Okay. And Mayor Charter?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, council.
Thank you, Mr. Trainer and others. Let's go on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
And who's on the second? Ms. Leon? All right. Madam Clerk?
Who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Debbie did.
Oh, I thought so. Okay. All right. Ready to call the vote? Yep. Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Leon?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
And Mayor Charter.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Any business not on the agenda? Standing Regional Committee or Council Liaison reports? Council member comments? How about the minutes? Mr. Duncan?
Council member comments. We are going to have an Economic Development Committee meeting on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Agenda is in preparation and should be circulated tomorrow. Minutes, I am telling you that I got one of them read. That's all I got read. So, week 2 is the minute. September 14th. Sorry. Monday, September 14th, 2020. Line 195 of those minutes, trustees, I think, is rendered slightly incorrectly. Line 199, sorry, I'll have to turn and look.
I see it.
You see it? Right. Yeah, Mr. Brown's part.
Yes.
Only one Mr. Brown. There was only one Mr. Brown, not multiple Mr. Browns Park. And line 476, Ms. Connolly's name, which is spelled correctly, I think, in all the other usages, somehow pops up with ease on line 476. So just make sure that she's O's.
No, he's not O's. He's not O's.
Oh, he's not O's, sorry. Right. And so that's line 476. How is it in line 476?
2 O's on 476.
Okay, so that's wrong. So with those corrections, I would move approval of the minutes of the meeting of September 14th, 2020 as corrected.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Connolly, with the correct spelling of her name as a second.
Oh, no. Wait, stop. What's the?
Stop the presses.
No, that's why we're here. 579.
Your name wrong,
That's why
too.
we're here.
You need to spell 565.
It was the evening of spelling everybody's name wrong.
565. You need to spell Miss Hardy's name. Yeah, she's hard I, not hard E. Line 565. So that's part of my motion.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? So I want to just kick the next two
Yeah,
minutes.
I would ask if we could, since we have a 2-week break here in our meeting schedule, give me time to catch up, and maybe there'll be some other ones that'll come out during that time.
All right, Phil. Okay, so we've got now closed session. I have language as to the one closed session, but I don't as to the second. Can someone provide me that? Maybe our city attorney? Or our clerk and our city attorney? Or just the city attorney? And so where are we going to do this closed session, by the way, here or there or everywhere?
In the Laurel Room, which is the one downstairs.
All right, and we're going to be able to get Mr. Snyder back on if he chooses
Yeah,
to.
there's a separate link that he has, and
Okay.
Sophie will be there to pull him in.
Okay.
So my apologies, Mr. Mayor, there's only one closed session motion prepared. If you, if council...
No, there's another one. He has the one that was on the agenda, and that's the new one.
Here we go.
So if you give me the new one, I'll combine it with the old one and hit both matters.
So if you could, my recommendation would be I need to craft a motion for you to go into a closed meeting to receive legal advice about a zoning matter. And so that motion is not here. If you would be so kind as to make the motion that you have, and then I can craft the other one for you while you're...
I have that motion we have.
It's the other one he doesn't have.
Okay, so
Is that the second one?
I don't have it either then.
So I want to draw a big circle around this one. Maybe, could you come up here? employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, performance of an employee by the public body. So both of these items are being voted on together. These are the two items we'll go into closed session regarding that I've just read, and that's the motion before you right now. So, Councilmember Connolly?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Artie?
Yes.
Leon? Hiscott?
Yes.
Snyder? It's not here. Tartar, yes. Okay, so we're going to go into closed session. We'll come back. That means, unfortunately, the folks in the audience, you're not going to be privy to what we're going to be talking about. We're going to go to another room, and we'll come back and come out of closed session, but probably not conduct any further public business. So just as an FYI for you, that's likely what will happen for the rest of the meeting. So thank you for coming this evening. We're in closed session now.
Yeah.
Tartar, yep, okay. This is our certification. What time is it anyway? Anyone know what time? 10:48, okay. This is our certification upon a motion made by Councilmember
Connolly.
and seconded by Councilmember
Leanne.
and passed by affirmative roll call vote in open session. It was certified that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session or meeting by the body. Councilmember Connolly?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hardy?
Yes.
Leon?
Yes.
Hiscott?
Yes.
Snyder?
Yes.
Tartar? Yep. Okay, that's done. So anything else anybody wants to say before we adjourn?
Good night.
Good night.
Move to adjourn.
All right, let's do it. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.